from a commercial marketplace perspective, you have different ways of delivering your offer to your prospective customers. So, for example, the most common one is a virtual machine, where you take your solution, you package as a virtual machine, you will create an offer inside the backend system, which we call Partner Center. And then as your prospective customers go through the front end, the commercial marketplace, so as Brian was mentioning, you have two storefronts that you can use depending on the audience that you have available there. So Azure Marketplace or AppSource. They will go into your listing, search for your listing, click on your listing, and basically deploy that your solution that is physically looking and deployable as a virtual machine. So virtual machine is an example. As I said, package as a standard VM. You have two older solution types that allows you to deploy a little bit more complex solutions. So let's imagine the scenario where you have basically a multi-tier application that will need multiple VMs. You may have a database attached, or you're utilizing Azure services, for example, that will compose that solution. This is when you're going to look at what we call Azure App Solution Templates and Azure App Managed Applications. So we'll look into those in a little bit more detail later on. We also have the option of delivering your solution as a container. So just your standard Docker container. And currently we support Docker containers. That's kind of the container engine that is supported. We are looking into providing Kubernetes support. So that's on the way. And we're looking at multiple ways of delivering via Kubernetes. It can be through, obviously, an AKS cluster, which is the Azure Kubernetes cluster. We're looking at Helm as a way to compose your solution and deliver it that way. So those are things that are coming up, and then we'll keep you posted on the roadmap that we have posted on the documentation for the Azure Marketplace, or the commercial marketplace. Now, the next options are the IoT Edge modules. This is if you're doing IoT and then you want to deliver your solution as part of an Edge module. So basically, you will have this Edge VM or Edge module. You will submit a container. The container will become part of that Edge device, and basically will perform the capabilities that your software can perform. The last two ones, we have SaaS application. That has been very, very popular with a lot of our publishers. The scenario is, imagine where you have a solution that it's delivered currently as a SaaS offer. That SaaS offer is going to be a multi-tenant solution. You will be able to deliver that via the marketplace. So, and then we'll go into more technical detail, and I'll show you some of the options that you have to deliver those SaaS application. The last part is the consulting service. Very straightforward. This is where you may have different services that you want to sell, and as a consultation, for example. And it's currently not transactable via the marketplace, but you will have it there as a listing option. So that's also very popular for a lot of the SI system integrators that have solutions that contain basically software plus services, and software plus services plus hardware. So that's basically where you're going to be able to package that. So let's go to the next slide. Now, it's always hard to determine what would be the best offer type that will fit your solution. This little graphic kind of shows you, gives you like a 10,000-foot level of what that will look like. So the way I like to think about how do I bring solutions is, one is my solution can be delivered as a SaaS. Is that SaaS multi-tenant? So is the solution going to be able to be multi-tenant? Then probably the best bet is for you to explore the SaaS offer, where the solution itself will live in your subscription. So you will deploy the SaaS application on your Azure subscription. The customers will basically buy the solution via the marketplace. they will go into their Azure subscription, basically create a little hook there, and then we'll go into more detail on that. And then they will be able to then provision themselves into your SaaS service that is hosted by you. Yeah, there's some technical requirements. We'll go into those into more detail, but basically Azure AD for authentication and for privacy and security is one of the main requirements we have for that. Now, if your solution is not very complex, and let's say that you can deploy it as a single VM. We have, for example, a lot of security appliances. Just imagine firewall-based solutions, network appliances solutions. Those are very good fit for a VM type offer. We also have some of the publisher, for example, that will use. They will have different levels of SKUs on their products, and then you may have a developer edition or a community edition, and then maybe that one can be delivered as a VM versus, the enterprise edition will be a little bit more complex. It will use, for example, more VMs or more tiers, right? So if it's bottom line, if it's something simple that you can bring or you can package into one single virtual machine, that's basically the best fit for you. Container is the same thing as the VM offer. Basically, if you can fit your solutions as a container, that's probably the best way. Now, for containers, we don't have transact capabilities yet, so you can bring your solution as a free. So let's say a free community edition, or as a bring your own license. Okay. Now, when we start moving into things that are a little bit more complex, so the multi-tier based solutions, you have two flavors. You will have what we call the solution template offer, which is basically multi VM, multi-service, allows you to combine multiple Azure services as part of that solution, delivered to the customer via the same interface that you will have in the Azure portal. So when we create the solution templates, you're going to have the ability to create a very granular UI experience. So you can ask the customer, for example, what is the password they want to use for each one of the different tiers, if they have a certificate that they want to upload. So it's a very granular UI that allows you to really compose and gather all the information that you're going to need. So then that information is gathered by the solution template and properly configured as it gets deployed into the customer subscription. Okay. Now, the other one that I haven't talked about is the manage. So inside Azure Apps, you're going to have two types of solution template offers. One is the solution template, and then the other one is the manage app. The difference between those two, from a technical perspective, is that the manage app will have a service principal that will basically block the customer from access any of the assets that you have deployed inside that application. Okay, so basically it's when it gets deployed, the resource group that gets deployed that is going to host your solution is completely protected, and you as a publisher own all the rights inside that resource group. The only permissions that the customer will have is the ability to delete that resource group and then obviously canceling the service as a result of that. But besides that, you're the only one who controls all the assets inside, and you then provide the endpoints that you want to have, your port 8080, your port 80, and basically you're providing an interface for them to come in into the solution that you have deployed on their side. So we'll go a little bit more detail on that. All right, but that's basically the 10,000 foot view of kind of how do I think about what packaging mechanism will work best for you. The next slide shows all the different types and assets. So I know it's a little bit busy, so let's look at the things that they're highlighted on the box. So if you look on the left side, you're gonna see all the different offer types, and then each one of the offer types will have specific technical assets. Okay, so for virtual machine offer type, basically the requirement is gonna be a VHC. For the solution templates, you're gonna need to deploy an ARM template. So ARM stands for Azure Resource Manager, and if you're familiar with AWS, it's basically CloudFormation. It's basically the scripting language that defines infrastructure inside Azure, and this is the way that we can script out what are the technical assets, what are the services, what are the infrastructure that you're gonna need to deploy as part of your solution. Okay, so that's the ARM template part, and also you're gonna have the UI definition file. This is what I was talking about: is this granular UI experience that you want to provide to your partners to configure the solution the way it needs to be configured. And some other things that you can deploy will be resources like, let's say you have specific libraries, scripts, runtimes, like let's say you're using Java or using Python. You can create the VMs already with those inside, or you can basically via ARM call specific scripts to have those packages being installed on demand into those VMs. Okay. Now, if we look at the SaaS apps, in there we'll go a little bit more detail, but basically the only time that you're really gonna need technical assets is when we go to the transact, and then those technical assets is gonna be the ability for you to integrate with Azure Active Directory, and the ability for you to talk to the billing API, which we'll go in a little bit more detail later. And also the creation of a webhook where Microsoft can notify you from events that are happening as customers are using that solution. Okay, so that's for SaaS. If we look on the containers, you'll see that you will need basically straight out containers, and then for IoT Edge modules, it will be the same thing. Now, another thing that I want you to pay attention to is the publishing SLA, the middle column that we have in here. So this is the SLA. So as you go through the publishing process, you will notice that it will take specific times. You have specific steps as you publish. So that we have a certification process. We have the ability for us to review that the solution is properly set up and configured. So that's what the publishing SLA, basically the amount of time from when you click please publish the solution, and then Microsoft takes it from there and then reviews that solution, and then performs the tasks of certifying, validating, and delivering those solutions to all the regions and data centers that you choose to have your solution be sold. So 11 days for virtual machines. If you look at solution templates, we have 2.5 days for the regular verification validation process, and then there is a Microsoft review process, so that's from 7 to 14 days. SaaS apps, it's about 6 days. If you are doing the transact and you're implementing the billing API, we've seen partners spend between 2 and 3 weeks developing the API and integrating with the API. And then for containers and edge modules, about 6.5 in average. Now, those numbers can be a little bit deceiving. Okay, so this is the standard Microsoft SLA. We're not assuming anything here. Like if you have, for example, to build a virtual machine, you need to spend time. Let's say you're importing a virtual machine from an AMI from Amazon, or let's put the example from any other provider, Hyper-V provider that you have around. So that may take time. So what we've seen for virtual machines is about, from beginning to basically being deployed is about 4 weeks. That's kind of the average that we've seen. For solution templates, it varies also a lot, because solution templates implies that your development team understands ARM. And ARM is, like, as I said, is very similar to CloudFormation from a functionality perspective. However, we've seen teams who are brand new to ARM, take basically 3 to 4 weeks to ramp up, and then 2 or 3 weeks to really understand, how to properly deploy the solution via ARM. So what we've seen here, it goes from 1 month to 2 months to 3 months in some extreme cases. So just to keep in mind. SaaS apps, that's probably the easiest. And in here, what you'll see as I said, is between 1 week if you're doing like a free or a contact me or a free trial. If you're looking at implementing the billing API for a transact, that's about between 2 weeks to 3 weeks in average. Okay. All right. I know this slide is a little bit busy, lots of information. This good thing, this is going to be recorded, so you're going to have the take the time later to review this. Now, from the VM technical assets, as I said, very straightforward. There's 3 basic things that you're gonna need to configure. One, bring your image into a VHD format, convert it to a VHD, bring it into an Azure storage account. That's step number 1. Verify that everything works. Then you will sysprep that image. Basically, we have a command for that will eliminate any kind of specific information that resides on that image. We also have a certification tool that you can download and run it through that VM image. And basically what that certification tool has, it basically contains about 80% of all the automated tests that we normally run on this at the certification step. So, if you sysprep and then you run the tool and then you resolve all the problems you have there, you have a very good chance to basically have your VM up and running in about 6 or 7 days. Now, you also have the option to define what ports you want to have open. And also you have, optionally, you can add data disks images if your solution needs it. So this basically, just think about it, attach disks to the VM, okay? And you can have up to 15 of those. From our experience, this is some of the questions that we hear the most from our publishers. So, VM offer, what is the billing? Brian touched this fairly extensively. So, bring your own license, and we have a usage-based monthly billing today, so charge per core hour. You have the ability of bringing private SKUs. This is also very popular for those customers that have selected, for those publishers that have selected customers. So let's say that you have a series of selected customers that you want to provide them with discount SKUs. You have the ability of creating these SKUs, and only those customers will be able to purchase those private SKUs at a discounted price, for example. We have the ability of enabling your offer to be resold via the CSP channel. So it's just a checkbox, and basically, as you as a publisher, you can say, yes, I want this solution to be resold via CSPs, and that's basically taken care of by just one click. The last part is what I mentioned before. Like, you can deploy your solution templates and manage apps using the VM offer, right? A lot of partners do that because currently we have a limitation on the billing for solution templates. So today, solution templates, it's on BYOL. If you want to have the ability to transact, what you will do is create a VM offer. You will set up your per core hour billing there. You will mark that VM as hidden from the marketplace. So basically, you're the only one. You as a publisher are the only one who knows that exists. And then when you create the solution template offer, you will basically call that hidden VMs. And when those hidden VMs get deployed into the customer subscription, the billing associated with that VM or those VMs offers basically the composite that will be charged to the customer. So I know seems a little bit complicated. From a practical standpoint, it's very straightforward. So if you have a solution that has, like, let's say 2 or 3 tiers, you can have one of those tiers contain the entire billing, for example. You don't have to split it out, and then create a VM offer with that tier. And then when you create the solution template, you basically call that specific VM offer, and then that's what the billing is going to be. Cool. Now, we get this a lot too. Like, so basically if I want, me as a publisher, I need to build very complex solutions. Let's say, multi VM, multi-service based solution. How do I go about this, right? So we have an extensive set of quick start templates So we have they're available on GitHub and they're updated regularly. So that's a good start. That's a recommendation. Basically, go to the GitHub repository, take a look at what makes sense from your side, and then basically that's what will that's what you can start using as a template. We also did a presentation last year, Brian Moore and myself, about how do you go about building solution templates and manage apps. The same best practices apply, and then you will find in there basically what is the approach, the best practices, and then the tooling that we have available. So we'll go a little bit more detail later, but basically we have scripting tools that would allow you to validate solution templates before you submit them. We also created tooling that would allow you to validate the UI definition file, which is that UI experience I was telling you before, that would allow you to capture all the configuration that you're going to need to properly deploy the solution for your customer needs. Okay. So great, two great presentations for you. Two great places for you to check out and then review if you're interested on the solution template area. Now, from a solution template offer, if we dig into the technical assets, what you're gonna see is basically two main artifacts. One is that user interface that I was telling you about. And then the second one is going to be the Azure Resource Manager template, which basically defines the infrastructure that you're going to deploy. Optionally, you have, you can bring your VM image references, your libraries, your scripts, nested template, basically any other thing that you may need, any other artifacts that you may need. You will package all that into a zip file, and then on the partner cloud partner portal, that's where you will basically upload that file. Okay. So that's basically one single file that will contain the definition, the user interface, and all the libraries and scripts that you may need. Now, this is an example of what the environment information will look like as you create the UI definition file. So, for example, as I said, if you need email address, you can use a text box. You can add regex for the email. It's super granular UI. It reminds me of how you used to build user interfaces for Windows before, where it's like the drag and drop. Very similar from a component perspective. We have upload controls, credential boxes, site selectors, storage account selectors, etc. So you have a very granular set of controls that you can use to create that experience. Now, how does the experience look like? It looks exactly the same as when you go to the Azure portal and then you create an asset there. So let's say you're deploying an Ubuntu VM, and then you will see these blades, this half windows that appear. So it's the same exact experience. So we're using basically the Azure portal experience, and it's the same controls that the Azure portal uses. So you can create exam sliders or blade experience as you have for first-party solutions that live in the Azure portal. When you build the package, as I said, those are the minimum requirements are those two files. So main template.json that will contain the ARM template itself. The create UI definition.json file contains the UI version, the UI experience. So those two files are core. Everything else that you want to put in there, you can put in there. This is it shows you kind of a package, zip file, .zip file opened up, and it shows you kind of folders and why not about the scripts. All this stuff is already documented. So as I said, if you go to that presentation that we did on build last year, you will have a good reference for that. And then inside the GitHub repository, we have a best practices and all the tooling necessary for doing that. Things not to include, obviously, anything that has to do with SSL certificates, passwords, safe keys, please don't include those. You can call those, like let's say that you need those at deployment time, the best thing to do is basically have an when you're the JSON, the main template is deploying the different assets, you can make call outs to specific services that we have, like a verification validation service, and then you can basically download those keys on demand. But please do not package them as part of the main package.zip. Tons of resources. So this slide basically shows you kind of all the resources that you will have available. They're currently available, best practices, the template validation tool, the Create UI documentation, and then the testing tool for the Create UI. So the UI testing sideload scripts. This is what I was referring to. What this does is basically allows you to once you create your Create UI definition file, you can run this script, and basically it will allow you to see the same experience that you will have that your customers will have on the Azure portal. Okay, so it's just basically instantiates, it sideloads the UI experience into the Azure portal for you to see how it would look like. Now this is a quick slide about the manage apps. So the main difference, as I said, the main difference between the regular solution template and the manage app is basically that ability that you can create a service principal. That service principal allows you to have full control over that resource group and all the assets inside that resource group that get deployed. So this is used for partners that want to have a third party, or they want to manage the solution themselves in behalf of the customer. So because you will have full control, you can just basically perform the upgrades yourself. We also have partners that use this as enhanced security measures, where they don't want to have, for example, the customers have access to any of the assets inside that deployment, and then basically they provide a UI web-based interface for the customer to get into that solution. So imagine you have multi-tier solution deploying the customer. You just basically, as part of the deployment, you just open port 80 and you tell the customer that that's where they're going to be doing all their work, for example, right? So that's kind of the main use cases that we've seen our customer use the manage applications. This is the same thing, basically explaining limited access for that managed group and why not. So there is more information on that link. So if you're interested on manage apps, please, when we provide you with the deck, just click on and it will show you the entire life cycle for our manage app.